Well, friends, the Sussexes have decided that they are going to return to the UK roughly 6 years post Megxit. And apparently they have their children enrolled in school already. This is a done deal. If you are a day zero subscriber on this channel, first of all, hi, thank you so much for being here still. I really appreciate you. But you know that I kind of got my boost on YouTube by covering Harry and Meghan. I even have a whole playlist on this channel dedicated to my videos covering Harry and Meghan. I've reviewed Spare. I have questioned all of their PR motives since 2020. I've detailed the Megxit timeline. I have shared additional details about several members of the royal family based off of what I learned from reading Valentine Lowe's Courtiers. I even watched the first few episodes of that Netflix cooking show where Meghan didn't teach us anything about how to cook or make flower arrangements because she didn't tell us where to find the products that she was using for making the candles or what tools she was using in any of the stuff that she was showing us. I don't even think she gave us full printed recipes for her cooking show. But that's neither here nor there. I also covered Dr. Shanduka and Sentabale. You get the point. The point is I have done extensive coverage on these two on my channel. So this subject is not something that I'm new to. And if you are not up on all of the lore, I recommend you go and educate yourself by looking at some of these videos here to sort of get caught up and current on what's happening, or at least what has happened up to now. And I would say that around fall last year, as summer was turning into fall, I stopped covering Harry and Meghan quite as extensively on this channel because I did not start my content creation journey just to make channel that was critical of Harry and Meghan. Like, this isn't just a Harry and Meghan snark channel, and I don't want that to be my presence on YouTube. Another thing is that I really misjudged just how delusional the supporters of those two truly are. I mean, they're kind of relentless, and they will espouse some of the most ridiculous stuff that I have ever seen in print or heard people say. It is out of control. But I suppose you would sort of have to be a delusional person to believe that Meghan Markle never knew anything about the royals before she started dating and then married Harry, and that same woman is now also able to communicate with the spirit of Princess Diana from beyond the grave. You'd also have to be delusional to believe that this woman who says that she was hounded mercilessly in the UK, that there were threats on her life, on the lives of her husband and her child, and that a lot of these threats and these negative messages that she was receiving from members of the media were also racially motivated, but now she's just gonna go back there and live there like it's nothing. I mean, get real. Where do they do that at? But before I go on, hi, my name is Antoinette Chanel. I am a former professor of English and communication, and so I like to make videos commenting on celebrities, influential people, influencers, and how they like to use media in order to portray certain messages, in order to accomplish things with all of these crazy brands that they're always propping up and building and pushing in our faces. And I have always been very skeptical and critical of the PR surrounding Harry and Meghan, even before they were married, when she was being sold to us here in the United States as this American princess that was going to go over to the UK. Now, that's not to say that I never was like fond of the story. I actually started out really rooting for Meghan because I thought, well, this is cool. You know, she's been divorced before. She has a mixed race heritage, yet she's marrying into this very colonizing type family, and I thought that it was a really interesting opportunity. I was excited about that. Where they lost me was when they started really trying to peddle her as this black princess, this black woman that black women needed to rally behind. I never understood that. I get that she has a black mother, but when I look at Meghan Markle, I don't see black woman, I see mixed race woman, and I think she conducts her life largely like that. And that's a really good segue into my commentary for today's video, because Harry and Meghan have spent the better part of the last 7 years really trying to portray to us just how victimized they have been.
Yeah, well, I guess, and also thank you for asking, because not many people have asked if I'm okay.
And instead of concentrating on all of those grievances, because like I said, I've covered most of them in videos on this channel before, I instead would like to concentrate on what they told us that they were going to do right as Megxit was happening in 2020, which was that they were going to live as private citizens, raise their children as private citizens, but in clapping back to the Queen, they said that service is universal in referring to the life of service that they would have had if they had remained working royals. And so with that said, let's start by looking at Archewell, because I believe where I left off was I was speaking to you about Archewell's 2023 financial documents, whatever I was able to find, because what's really interesting is that they don't make their financial docs readily available. They obscure a lot of their earnings, their spending, all of this financial stuff in very, I mean, it's typical and run of the mill for most business people, but for the message that Harry and Meghan give about wanting to be charitable, be generous, and how they feel a duty to give back to the world, they sure don't make their initiatives and, you know, tracking all of their dollars and stuff like that. They sure don't make that easy. So Archewell obscured its 2024 and 2025 earnings by making IRS Form 990 available on its website. IRS Form 990 does show what some of the earnings, some of the spending might be for the organization, but that is not a typically generally accepted document for gauging a charity's actual financial standing. So most accountants in the United States, CPAs, they are going by what the generally accepted auditing standards, or GAS, are, as well as the generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, in the United States. And so according to both of those bodies, Form 990 really isn't what you want to put up when you're trying to show the public all of the details about your earnings and your spending. But besides Form 990, Archewell also publishes something called an impact report to its website each year. And it seems like what they're trying to do is pass this impact report off almost like an annual report would be. And I know from working for a 501c3 nonprofit in the past, what an annual report is supposed to do is it's actually supposed to detail all of those financial figures that I was talking about just a minute ago for the board of directors, for your investors, all the people who have donated, all of the people who support that nonprofit. The annual report is supposed to show them that, hey, this is where your dollars went, and thank you so much for donating to us. Continue to donate to us because we can do more great work with it in the following fiscal year. Archewell's impact report is really more like a marketing document. It definitely paints the organization in the best possible light while omitting certain information strategically, so that they can continue to look like they are serving the population that they claim to serve, which I think that they have several initiatives, one of which being that they want to protect children in the online space. They want to, you know, see about creating or having a hand in creating legislation that protects young people, and I think maybe all people online. Meghan likes to bring up the idea that she is the most bullied woman on the planet from time to time when she is speaking publicly. So I just kind of assumed that all of these things were wrapped up in all of that. They are claiming an initiative of wanting to stop online bullying and wanting to stop, you know, the cyber attacks, personal attacks on people that can happen. So in terms of the revenue for Archewell Foundation, I was able to find some 2024 figures. So it looks like they had a total revenue of $2.59 million, but it looks like their spending for 2024 was $5.11 million, leaving them with a deficit of $2.51 million at the end of fiscal year 2024. So that might be part of the reason why I had a hard time finding those 2024 numbers when I was looking for them last year in 2025, because I think that they were trying to obscure the fact that that was a year of loss for them. Although if we look at the total sum of all of their fiscal years since Archewell Foundation was established, they really have not been profitable. They They got some strategic, well-timed gifts of donated money that helped to boost their revenue temporarily, but I don't think that this has been a charity that has been top of mind for most people. I don't think that they are the recipient of lots and lots of gifts and charitable giving. I don't even think that they really have the public stature that would attract people who are wealthy donors to want to donate to them. Put quite simply, the Archewell Foundation does not have enough to put up to show what good it's doing in the world that qualifies its nonprofit status and explains the impact that Harry and Meghan are truly having. I think the impact is minimal. And I wasn't able to find any figures for 2025 just yet, probably for the same reasons that the other years came out super, super late because they're trying to obscure things. But you know, when I get some of that information, I'll come back and share. But outside of Archewell, their other charitable ventures really haven't been that successful either. So I found out through researching that there was an art installation that was installed in April of 2025, and it was called Lost Screen Memorial. And it showed, so this was a collaboration between Archewell and the Parents Network, which I've spoken about on this channel before. And the art installation, oh here, it was in New York, and it featured 50 smartphones displaying the photographs of children who died following social media related harms. Now, one distinction that I do want to make that I also made when I covered this whole Parents Network thing in the past is that they were not making any sort of distinction amongst the families that they were featuring in the Parents Network special that Harry and Meghan did. It was like a CBS Sundays thing. They were not making any distinction between like how those kids had passed away. So like there was one child who he met his unfortunate unaliving because he purchased some substances off the internet that were laced with fentanyl. So he had an accidental overdose, and that's what led to his demise. But then there were also children who their families were there because they had unalived themselves intentionally. And so I think that it's really important to make that distinction, that the parents who are participating in this Parents Network and these online related harms, there's a variety of categories that they are classifying for online related harms. This isn't just self-harm. But then as I dug a little further into the Parents Network, it looks like they are actually no longer being handled or run by Archewell Foundation anymore. I was only able to find late 2025, so sometime between November and December. Operation for the Parents Network was handed over to a different organization called Parents Together. And so that means that all of the assets, operational capacity systems, processes, and branding, everything got handed over to Parents Together. And now seemingly Harry and Meghan don't have anything to do with the Parents Network anymore. That was fast. I mean, that was just in spring of 2025 that they announced that partnership, and already it's over. Now, Harry and Meghan have continued to speak about protecting against online harms in, you know, whatever public forums they're able to show up to or get invited to. But as far as having an organization that is working towards that, not so much. And specifically too, I don't see any dollars being pumped into these things. I don't see the money. I know that they spent $5.11 million in fiscal year 2024, but I don't know if that went into supporting what they were launching with the Parents Network. And I don't think that there's been any like scholarship from the organization that's been like handed out to young people or to schools or to organizations, nothing like that. They just handed this company over. This is on top of the fact that As Ever, which was Meghan's lifestyle brand that she launched right around the same time that we started seeing the Netflix special premiere last spring, so spring 2025. As Ever doesn't really have a whole lot of financial documents that I could look through either. Similarly, the profits, the revenue, the spending, all of that has been obscured, probably on purpose. But in terms of the impact of As Ever, it doesn't seem that they've had a lasting impact because the relationship between Netflix and the Sussexes, that has dissipated. They've gone their separate ways now. The As Ever brand was sort of launched in conjunction conjunction with that. And as I covered in a previous video, there were going to be some retail locations selling some of the merch, like the jams that she was making, maybe even some of the bath salts. But then I never heard anything about that, and I wasn't able to find anything about that when I was researching just now. We don't see, or at least I have not seen, any like limited drops that Meghan has done. Usually she hits up Instagram and has people that are her loyal customers hit up Instagram to show pictures of the product. It's been a while since we've seen any of that. This is on top of the fact that the deal that the Sussexes had with Spotify also ended prematurely with only one season of Archetypes, is that what it was called? That podcast that she had, where they actually built onto her house so that she could record the podcast from home. And as you might recall, it was around this time that I think it was the head of podcasts at Spotify was caught calling Meghan and Harry effing grifters. So, you know, I mean, I wasn't a fly on the wall in those meetings. I wasn't in the Sussex household, thank goodness, as these things were going on. But doesn't seem like the relationship between them and Spotify went well. And it doesn't sound like Spotify feels that they got the return on the investment that they had made in the Sussexes, hence the term grifters. On top of this, Harry's book Spare never got a follow-up. And I thought that was interesting because when Spare was announced, like right as Megxit was happening and it was coming out that they had these deals with Netflix, with Spotify, with Penguin Random House, you know, I was sort of thinking that that was going to be like a multi-book deal. But the most that we've seen happen with Spare is that there was a paperback release. I think that happened in late 2024, but there was never any follow-up book, which I found odd. I thought, you know, at one point when they were reporting on Spare, Harry had said something about like, yeah, I had enough material to fill up 3 books. So I was under the impression that Spare was going to be followed up by, I mean, I don't know. Spare, it would be followed up by what, Jack? But followed up by Transmission. I don't know, dude, but I thought there was going to be more books. I thought he had more stuff to tell us. I thought Meghan had more stuff to tell us. And so I bring all of these things up to say that, you know, the charity doesn't seem to be making much of a difference. Their efforts at creating branding and creating some partnerships between them and some other businesses. I think at one point I saw a picture of Harry surfing, but he wasn't surfing at the beach, even though he lives in California. He was surfing in like a wave pool at some place, and it looked like it was some sort of a partnership, sponsorship. I have no idea. I just know that we never saw anything else after that. And then if you're paying attention to the other things that have happened with all of these Sussex developments over the last 6 or 7 years, then you can also be clued into there being trouble in paradise within Meghan and Harry's personal lives as well. And when I say this, I'm not really talking so much about Thomas Markle. I personally don't cover the whole issue with Meghan and her father simply because I don't want to say she needs to. She has a duty to make up with him. I understand what it's like when you have a parent that you really are not interested in because they have mistreated you and they have betrayed you. So I shoot her some bail there by just not talking about it. But she's got former friends who have spoken to the press to say things like, you know, Hollywood is over Harry and Meghan. They see through their lies, they see through the facade that they tried to sell us, and people aren't buying it. Like one of Meghan's former friends is on record saying that. She was quoted saying that at an event. I have also talked about the fact that Jessica Mulroney, who at the time that Meghan and Harry married was Meghan's bestie, those two have also experienced their own rift. We have seen no communication happen between those two, I think, since maybe 2020. And I think Jessica Mulroney is divorced now too, and the divorce was tied to the rift that came about all because of Meghan sort of hanging her out to dry. So either way, there is evidence that in their wake, they are not just leaving things better than how they found it. They are not just leaving things with their mark and their grace on it. But I really see this move for them as them turning tail and running away from the United States because things were not successful here for them. The public, the people, the brands, Hollywood, all of it, no one was gravitating towards them. No one was scooping them up and loving on them. They never got any Met Gala invitations. They never got any major award show invitations like Emmys or Grammys. They got a couple of fringe awards here and there, mostly the kind that you pay for. But for the most part, the United States and the United States public didn't laud them the way that I think that they were expecting and banking on. But see, this is where I have to question that delusional Sussex squad that Meghan touts proudly, even though she won't say it out loud. Because I find it quite interesting that Meghan claimed that the British public was hounding her mercilessly. They were so unkind to her. They were berating her and never let her have a moment of peace. They were even involving her child in these things. They were writing nasty, racially motivated types of headlines and stories all about her not belonging in her place within the royal family or within British society in general because of her race, because of her status, because she was common, all of these things. You know what? Let's go ahead and assume that you guys are telling the truth, that all of these things are absolutely true. So all that stuff I just said about the press and the public. Catherine made Meghan cry on her wedding day. Okay, we're going to go ahead and assume that that's true. We're going to go ahead and assume that in the royal family, nobody wanted to support Meghan. She got no help whatsoever. Nobody stepped in to try to help her learn that life. They just gave her the cold shoulder and they shunned her. If all of those things are true, why would you go back? Why? Just tell me, why would you go back? Why would you want to go live in the UK again when you said that it's dangerous? Have you guys gotten your security detail? Like, are you paying for your own security or is somebody funding that? Because it's interesting to me that you would go back to a place that you claimed was so dangerous, where your phones were being tapped, where you were being watched and hounded mercilessly and you had no privacy whatsoever. That's the place you want to return back to? Where'd they do that at? I have had plenty an employer who I could not stand. The day that I submitted my notice and walked right up out of there was one of the best of my life. If you think that I would go back to a place like that, oh no, you've wildly misjudged my character entirely. And so if Meghan is this discriminated against Black woman, she sure isn't acting like any discriminated against Black woman I've ever seen. I would expect her to have a lot of objections to this, to say, oh hell no, we're not going back. And you know what? Let me sit down with King Charles and have it out with him about how we need to be protected and we need security and how you aren't doing anything for his son and his grandkids. You know, that just seems like more of an attitude to take if all of these stories really are true. If the Oprah interview, if we're supposed to take that as true, that there were conversations happening in the family about what your baby's skin was going to look like, you want to go back to the continent where those people live? And that's really it, friends. That's all of the update that I'm going to give on these two. Like I said, I got bored with covering them because they are boring. Their PR antics are very easy to see through and they don't do anything that is exciting or even worth talking about most of the time. So this is where I'm going to leave it for now. But I personally think that this is them running away from the expenses of their life here in the United States, because that mansion, the security alone, I think I quoted you guys, was like $20K a month or something crazy like that. And we know that they love their security. On top of the fact that if they've got this grove that she's like growing all the fruit for her jams in, then lots and lots of watering is happening there, because this is Southern California. That's the desert, people. It doesn't really rain out there a whole lot. So that is a high cost water bill on top of the mortgage, on top of the electricity, on top of your gas, on top of all of the other things that are necessary to make life go round. And if you don't have these lucrative projects in your pocket anymore because Spotify, they ain't really effing with you. Netflix said, all right, deuces, you're out. Penguin Random House, they don't really seem to want any new material from you either. And at one point, I just remembered Harry was supposed to give us a podcast too. We had a funny quote from Spotify about that as well. But suddenly now all of your sources of revenue are drying up, and I really feel like they're just turning tail and running back to the UK because, well, at least we can find a place to live there where, you know, Harry's name and clout will take them a little bit further than Meghan's will here in the United States. But I don't really see this as Well, let me not. There might actually be some reconciliation that's happening here between the royal family and the Sussexes. I would be very shocked to see that, but it could very well be happening. King Charles has said plenty of times that he is in his older age now. He wants to enjoy these final years of his life, and maybe he sees reconciliation with his son as the pathway to that. I mean, I'm sure he probably wants to get to know his grandkids, and yeah, I'm not going to hate on that. I'm not mad at that at all. But I think I'd be more apt to support something like that if I maybe saw some movement on Harry and Meghan's side to reconcile some things. Please don't forget that it was the Meghan Sussex squad that was the reason behind, a large part of the reason behind why Catherine had to disclose to us that she had cancer as she was in the midst of her treatment. You know, people were trying to get her medical records, like just hounding the heck out of her. And a lot of that was driven by the Sussex squad and a lot of the really awful, crazy, outlandish rumors that they come up with for why William is cheating on her. And that's why she's dying, because he gave her a disease or whatever kind of crazy stuff. I'm just saying, could there be an apology to Catherine maybe about, you know, you've had a tough road, but we are so happy to see you be healthy, and let's just continue forward together. You know, can we maybe rope in all of the kids together, because they're all royal children. I mean, and they're innocent in all of this. Like, I would be more apt to believe that this was a reconciliation move if I saw that. But hey, who knows? That could be what's happening here. I have no idea. I'm not King Charles. I don't know what he'd be doing if I was King Charles. You know what I'd tell? Well, never mind. And so I'll be sitting back to watch and see what happens next. But honestly, I don't expect much from these two. I think that they are down and out and they are crawling back, and serves them right, because they sure were arrogant when all of this began. And that never rubbed me the right way because I didn't understand it. I mean, Meghan is a B or C rate actress at best. Like, she was not #1 top billing on Suits. She didn't really have this long, illustrious, robust career in Hollywood. Like, she really was just kind of hanging out and making it there. And I think that people have been turned off from Harry's attitude for a while now, because people just really don't want to hear about how a dude who grew up in a castle has all these grievances towards his family all over all of the things that he didn't get to experience and didn't get to have, you know, while growing up in a castle. Like, read the room, dude. This is not the time nor the place. Also, I think that they might be taking off because things are starting to heat up here politically once again in the United States. And honestly, I don't think Meghan wants to be accountable for that. I don't think she wants to have to answer questions about, hey, what do you think about what happened to Dr. Jason Arday? And how do you weigh that as you proceed with your move back to the UK? What do you feel about Nolan Wells? Nothing to say about Nolan Wells? Nothing to say about Carmelo Anthony? I mean, for this Black woman who is so generous and so thoughtful, it seems like there's a lot of crickets over there when there are a lot of areas with which to display how much you care about the Black community and how much that means to you. If Miss Rachel can do that, then certainly Meghan can do that. That's how I feel about it. But anyway, I'm done talking about these two. Go ahead and sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think, and I will catch y'all in the next video. Bye, y'all. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more from me, consider hitting that subscribe button so you can see all my playlists and get notified every time I upload to this channel. If you want to keep up with behind the scenes lifestyle stuff, you can follow me on Threads. Take care.